I tell you, I'm not liking this. I'm not liking this Steven stuff. I'm really not. But anyway, welcome. How we
Well,
doing,
we're
guys?
live.
We're live.
You,
I've got like Streamyard HQ, and I'm totally out with my comfort zone, but I'm just having to embrace it.
well, so far, mate, you're doing a sturdy job. I mean, what we're 20 seconds in, but
Well, let's see if it's recorded first, will we? Before the high five start.
no, but we'll be back. I mean, obviously, I hope you had a great Christmas, mate, and a fantastic New Year. And obviously, we'll start. I mean, I know we've had conversations before Christmas from a business front and everything else about where we want to take things and we want to go. And yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not a big sort of person in terms of New Year's resolutions, but I do like it when you have a break from work or a break from playing sort of sport or whatever, and you have that time to reflect. And I think it's really quite healthy. So you always come back, I think, with new ideas, and you're able to sort of look back and think, actually, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought, or I've done this actually really quite well. So yeah, mate, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Not really. Not really. Not like you say. Like it's not really something I kind of do. I don't kind of like. There's no kind of special times, is there? I mean, that's kind of similar to what we teach in the hub. You know, it's there's no kind of special times of extra effort. It's just things get done at the same standard all the time. You know, and it's certainly like I think when you what I find right when I'm coaching to be honest, it's much more for me than for them. I was just on there today. I haven't told you this, but today I was just on with a CEO today of a sporting company and helping him, and it was very much like it's just a great reminder for me, keeping me like where I need to be because he was very much like I'll be happy when this and this happens in terms of like what he's after, right? So he's putting conditions on his happiness. And it's only going to be, I'm only going to be satisfied when this, and this happens. So it's very much about the destination, the goal. When, as we're teaching the hub, it's like the destination can never be happier than the journey, and really the journey towards the goal. That's the good bit. That's the amazing bit. So basically, where we are right now, and obviously it's a good reminder for us too, because it's like we're very kind of driven guys, and want to press on forward, but it's really like it's all about the journey towards that, and this is a good bit right now, right here, right now, not when we're in every country in the world, and everything's like amazing, and the golf one's up and running, and all this. No. It's all about right here, right now. So it was a good reminder for me for that today. That's something I love most about the coaching is that it's like I get as much out of a session as the person I'm one to one with.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, mate. I think for I mean that was something I realised a long time ago, and I've never been sort of like big on those things, but I know like what it does do, like New Year, gives people a chance to stop and to reflect, and then people sort of plan, which is why when we get onto today's topic, I thought it was quite fitting to look at that from a cube sport player's perspective and how they'll look at the year coming and how they can really sort of look at the practice.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's something you want to incorporate as often as possible, just to sit and reflect, to to look at how you can improve in every aspect of life. But that's a
definitely.
really important point. I think that we'll maybe talk about, but in the topic of the video, because if you attach it to something, especially something like if it's a financial reward or say winning a trophy or something like that, you're forever going to be disappointed, aren't you? Really,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
forever going to be chasing, because if you think, oh, once I get to that aspect, and I suppose maybe at one point I might have been like that, but you get a lot of people, especially in business, where once I hit this milestone, I've made this amount of money, or I've got this amount of people, I'll be happy. And then if you speak to those people who have had milestones like that and they achieve it, rarely are they happy. They'll want something else and
Just
something
move
else.
on. Yeah,
Move on to
exactly.
something else, and actually, then when you think, well, I've built that up, but in actual fact, once I've got that milestone, it's made no real difference. You've got to be able to enjoy things. Then I know I've mentioned before about the Robert Greene book Mastery, and about mastering a skill. And again, that's very much a big part of that is the enjoyment, the excitement, somehow finding throughout your journey of why you actually took up that thing in the first place. And obviously, with us talking specifically about Q Sport, that's it. That's for anybody probably watching this, and for us, it's Q Sport is that passion. It's that mission to master it, and within that, it's trying to not then confuse. Actually, I'm not going to enjoy this journey. It's about that end, but the end never really comes. It's trying to find that enjoyment within it, isn't it? And why you did it in the first place. And I think it's a lesson maybe now for people to go back and think, actually, why did I get into Q Sports in the first place? And for all of us, it's because we loved it. We loved potting balls. We loved getting on the table and learn how to cue and pot that first ball or make that first 50 or 100 or 147 if you're good enough. Making moments. Yeah,
10.
In your case, mate, making your 10. I mean, what a deal that was, eh?
No, I've not done it yet. I don't know what it's like. I've absolutely no idea.
Sorry, well, just imagine when you do. I'll come along with a couple of party poppers and just set them away, and one of them little things going. I hate them. I've got enough of them over Christmas.
My first double break.
Them and fireworks. I know I've realised, mate, it's a slightly separate topic, but I've realised over New Year's, I hate fireworks with a passion.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I just hate them. They're just pointless. Trying to get to bed on New Year's and stuff, and you say, just popping off all the time, and you just think, oh man, they're just, what a disappointment.
I'm with you.
Yeah, they do me head in. Just the noise of them.
You want these? This is the way forward.
Yeah, I need more.
These badgers. These badgers. I wear them every night. This is good, so you don't hear any of that nonsense. But yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Anyway, I think enough of the introduction and us chatting rubbish. I thought it'd be really good one. I know I mentioned on the phone before we came on is I think now when you're looking as a Q Sport player of any level, I mean, I'm going to obviously put a lot of trust in the fact that most of the people who are going to be watching this will be a player trying to improve their game or somebody, sort of trying to improve really any aspect of life, but is to come back to practice. Because I know we chat a lot and about players and practice and what they do, what they don't do, and how they can ultimately improve. Q Sports is one where it's a little bit different to other sports. But I think it's to look at how players can actually improve their practice and what they're doing. And I just thought, well, now, start of a new year, people are going to be wanting to look, coming into the new year, all fire, all guns blazing. How can I improve? They're going to go on the practice table. But first and foremost, one of the big things that we often see is players of all levels are going to a table, they'll practice, they'll do the same thing week in, week out, day in, day out. And then they'll say, well, actually, when I'm getting the competition, matches, tournaments, I don't feel I'm improving. I'm going backwards. This isn't working. Yeah. But there's no actual plan or even going back to just identifying what the problem is. And for me, you look at practice. What's practice there for? To get better. But then it's that next step of, well, get better at what? What specifically do you need to improve on?
Yeah.
And I thought it would be really good just to have a conversation around this and our experience and all those different things, mate. But that was really my thoughts of, and this is at all levels. It's at professional level as well. We see this is players will say they're struggling, they're not getting better, but it's at age-old saying, isn't it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, but yet that's what we see all of the time. Players will go into practice, they'll do the same drills, they won't monitor those drills, they won't record them, they won't identify a specific problem and how they're going to address that. And then they'll just say, well, I'm not getting better. And they'll judge that purely, actually going back to what you were saying about this, CEO at the beginning, they'll judge this purely based on the results that they get, not actually on what they're working on.
Yeah.
And that's the conundrum of a Q Sport player, isn't it? They'll go into a game and they'll say they know how fine line it can be at the top level, that you can be playing unbelievable and go and not get a chance and get beat. But yet they're quick to blame the match play or to use the match play to evaluate actually where the game's at. When even in their own mind, they can't actually do that because your results don't always speak of how well you're playing. You can just run into somebody in form, encounter a bit of bad luck, have a bit of a bad day. So you practice, you can't then use results all of the time to monitor where you're at. So, I mean, obviously, I've spoke quite a bit, mate. I'll open that up to you. I mean, in terms of your thoughts, and you've worked with numerous different players across different levels and everything else. So, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying is like spot on, but I mean, basically, it's practicing with two things, two P's, basically. Purpose. What's the thing you're trying to get better at? What's the goal with the practice? And pressure. So when you put those two things together, we're golden. We're off and running. But so often, I mean, even in WST players or leading players in the pro world, and so what we doing yesterday? And I'll get together with them 1-to-1, and it's like, well, I was doing some solo practice, great. What we specifically try to get better at? Well, I'm just trying to clear this drill. And but like to what end? Like what are you trying to get better at? And I just don't know. All they're trying to do is like clear that drill. So there's no purpose to it, and then there's no pressure because pressure comes from consequences, right? So like if we were walking on, let's say say there's a football pitch in your park, right, and you're walking along the touchline of that, right? There's no pressure in doing that. It's dead easy, right? I mean, it's flawless. I mean, you could walk backwards, forwards, and not step off the line. It's absolutely fine. But say we draw that line on the edge of a cliff. Now there's consequences. Now you're under pressure, right? And you're going to do a really bad job of walking along that line because you're going to be in bits. And this is what we're after. We're after that pressure in practice. And so often players have got, and this is pro players, never mind amateurs. Amateurs are, it's worse, but it's like there's just no consequence of how to add some pressure to that, how to add some consequence to that practice, and then put them under the cosh, and then the practice becomes when you have those two things, purpose and pressure, the practice now becomes meaningful instead of completely meaningless, and they're just moving balls around the table, chatting to their pals, chatting to the bar staff, whatever. It's like completely. It just becomes, they're not engaged. It's just completely nonsensical. And the better the player is, the more pointless practice becomes if they're not fully engaged. And we're trying to make things so incredibly difficult that if they're not fully engaged, the drill is going to turn them inside out. And it is something like, it has been noted to us. Like, I did get a comment from somebody on the hub recently, and they have asked for more drills, and we do have more drills. And we'll add some more because they're already filmed with Sheppy and Poole and Liam Graham in the snooker world. But, they're already filmed, and we will add some more on because it's players are, as I say, like, the drills are done in such a way as there's no room for them being disengaged. The drill is going to swallow them whole and spit them out the other side. if they're anything other than completely fully engaged. So it's really key, and I just see even players in WST as well. They're just like this revelation that we go into in Q Sport Hub, that in terms of purpose, snooker's dead easy. It's actually a bit simpler than pool, but in terms of purpose, cue ball control is the beginning and end of anything that matters. Because if the cue ball's in the right place, the pot will be easy, and it's all about that. And the break comes to an end just because your cue ball's out of place, because the pots become more challenging. Now you have to do more with the cue ball and cut the pocket, etc., etc. And basically, that's, so if the cue ball's in the right place, then guess what? Your safety game's amazing as well. So everything kind of falls into place. So and even without naming names, I mean, I recently did a one-to-one with a multiple world champion Q Sport player, and their question to me was, well, okay, I get it, right? Okay, cue ball controls everything, right? Totally agree, get it. How do I practice that? And again, it surprised me a great deal, and as soon as you start explaining it to them, they're like, oh wow, yeah, right, yeah, totally, right. So if your cue ball's out on that drill, yeah, you're done. And I says, yeah, exactly. So hence why, we've got them profoundly under pressure, so that we've got drills that, even I think one of the ones we've got in the hub there, I've seen pros that are months into that before they've cleared it. And now there's purpose and there's pressure with both of those things.
Yeah.
You've tried them yourself, right? I mean, it's
hard,
yeah,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I think it was the last video that I mentioned that I said, about when I would practice and always trying to put that pressure on. It was something that I just sort of did really, and I don't even know why I did it. It was just sort of to put that pressure on because it made it a little bit more exciting for me and added that. But in turn, it allowed me to know where I was at. And I think unless you're doing that, because it's something I think that's really quite fundamental, like you mentioned there. Cue ball control is everything, and that's if I'm looking. Not that anybody's particularly asking me to do, but if I'm watching Snooker and I'm analysing Snooker and I'm looking at a young player or a player of any ability, the first thing I look at is cue ball control. And I think that's how you can very quickly identify the very, very top and elite and players a little bit further down the rankings. Yes, missing balls under pressure, but it's also keeping the cue ball under control, under pressure. Because if you can get that cue ball to where you want, then you're making that next pot so much more easier. You're not playing it in the blind pockets. You're not having to do a lot more with the cue ball. You're not having to cannon into other balls. If you can put that ball where you want it, even under pressure, you're making that pot so much more simple by being able to control the cue ball. And I think people look at different aspects, but for me, if I'm going to work on something, it's how under pressure do I get that cue ball as close to where I want it to be as many times as I can out of 100. Because if you can control that under pressure, you're making the pot so much more simple.
It is, and it's absolutely everything. But in terms of love this process that, like I said, I've spent 30 years working in elite sport, running racing car teams across the globe to world championship titles, and we've got a process to get to optimize anything. There's a process, a formula on how to do that. And when we apply that formula to cue ball control, and this is where it's a lot more forgivable, with players not having the understanding on how to do that. But when you say a player who's been 20 years in WST, it's like, right, there's two things that will give you reverse engineering this. Okay, we need cue ball control, right? So even out with how to practice that, how do we get cue ball control? It's two things that needs to happen in order for that cue ball to be back to where you need it to be. And they're still struggling with that, but it's to me much more understandable, because it's like a much more of a kind of like, I know this because of my background, and this is what we're applying in a much more elite sport every day, and it's one of good mechanicals, right? So the technical aspect of the game, of course, right? But obviously, if they're 20 years in WST, of course they've got good mechanicals. That's a given, right? And then the next bit is how we feel, because obviously our feelings fundamentally, as we teach in great detail in the hub, our feelings fundamentally on a cellular level change how your body is. And that's why in life it's the most important thing for us as humans, because it's the first question we ask each other. First question you and I ask each other today is, how are you? It's the first question you ask anybody, be it partner, family member, friend, foe, it doesn't matter. It's like, how are you? And it's because to feel good, that's all we want as humans. And if you feel good on a cellular level, your body will respond accordingly. But if there's anxiety, fear, tension, frustration there, anger, then your body will respond to that accordingly. And you'll throw a quick one in, you'll put pure cue action on it, start hitting off the side of the ball, etc., etc. And if you do that, obviously your cue ball control is going to be really bad. It's cause and effect. So basically, it's about the good fundamentals for most players on Q Sport Hub. They're either elite amateurs or professionals, generally players that are at that level. So generally, they've been playing the game a long time since they were kids. And I don't think there's a player we've got on Q Sport Hub that hasn't played since they were a kid. So technically, they're pretty good, either very good or solid, like technically. So basically, all they've got to do is to feel good, and then because they've got technical skills, so if they feel good, their cue ball control will be tight. If their cue ball control will be tight, they'll score well. If you score well, you win matches. And so everything goes back to the first bit. You just get the first bit right, then everything clicks into place from there. And part of how you do that is of course about how you practice, which is the purpose of today's video, because if you're just not practicing right, I mean, you're not going to feel good, because the pressure of the game is getting on top of you. But if you practice with purpose and pressure, then the pressure will become the norm, and then you'll be able to deal with it. Well, look at like an airline pilot. This just came to my head, but like I've never used this before. Isn't it weird? Never used this example before, but it just came to my head. But anyway, but I think
you don't know if it's any good yet. It could be shit.
Probably.
Might be a good reason. Let me be the truth to that.
But like, if you think like about an airline pilot, like flying the plane, right? You would like to think they're pretty chilled out flying the plane, right, and landing the plane, despite they've got 200 or 300 bodies in the bag there, because they're pretty chilled out about it, because it's like they've done this 100,000 times, and under a great deal of tension and purpose. So they've got purpose because they're in the simulators, and they know exactly what to do. They've got pressure there because they're getting monitored, right? They've got their trained professionals are monitoring what they're doing to make sure they're good enough to do this. And if they get it wrong, they're out of job, right? So that they've practiced with this purpose and pressure, and this process works. This is exactly what they've done. And so therefore, when it comes to doing the real thing, pretty chilled out.
Yeah.
And then players are practicing without these things in place, without the things that the pilot have had in place. They're just meandering about, no doing solo practice, just practicing with other players. Quite often we see that. And to me, it should be 50-50 mix of solo and practicing and with other players. And then, they're not putting any purpose to it. There's no pressure. And therefore they struggle. They wonder why they're under the cosh so much and feeling so crap in matches and underperform. What do you think? It's not rocket science. It's about mastering the basics. really, and that's generally, that's what we teach on the hub, isn't it? It's a lot of that, like mastering the basics.
Yeah. It was a good one, mate.
So,
it actually reminded me when I went away.
when you flew a plane.
I went away in the summer because I'm not a good flyer. And when I went away in the summer, we went to Lanzarote, and when the plane was coming in, like the runway, because I've never flew into Lanzarote, this was the first time. The runway was like literally right on the sea. So when we're coming in, I was just looking out the window, and all I could see was sea, and we're just getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And I was looking around, no one else was nervous. And we got there. It was lovely. They let like the kids go and see the two pilots. I walked in. The first thing was this like young pilot sat there, probably early 20s, and like the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "I thought we were going to end up in the sea there, mate." And he just laughed and went, "No, I didn't fancy putting us in the sea today," but he was just chilled out, and I was still shitting myself. Like, but you're right, because they're going the simulator, and I think they do that. I mean, the famous one's obviously that Sully, isn't it? New York.
Yeah.
When you listen to that live recording, that's just one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in my lifetime. When he's just like, "Yeah, it's gonna have to put it on the Hudson," as if he was just like clicking the light off in his front room, like shutting the cupboard door. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to put it on the Hudson, and just calm as can be, put it down there. And I think if you and a lot of that will come down to practicing in the simulator and going through those things, which is obviously a requirement. It's something that you hope you don't have to do, but yeah, mate.
No, but
I think that was a good example.
But the key sport players, I mean, they don't know what pressure is. I mean, it's like, like, I think I did a video on this recently where, we spoke about, we've got, in terms of pressure, there's other sports where you put your life on the line during the course of the event, like motorbike racing, and it's like they're absolutely putting their life on the line, to get this. Yeah. And it's like, that's pressure. That's pressure. What's going to happen to you if you lose a pool match? Or somebody set you on fire afterwards, or or the pilot. That's pressure. You've got hundreds of people's lives in their hand if they make a mistake. But yet, like you say, like they're totally calm. And why they can? Because they get taught to be calm. Because we perform better when we're calm. And like again, if we're speaking about emotions affect us on a cellular level, imagine their dexterity and their touch when they're stressed compared to when they're calm. Night and day. Absolutely night and day different,
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I think that's something. I mean, I don't know if it's just with getting older, or it's something maybe that I've sort of that I'm practicing as I go, which you tend to is. Like, you realise when you're looking at sport and you think, people get really bogged down with it and, let it get them down. And you understand that, but I think it isn't it, you lose that match, so what? So what? I understand when there's maybe, there's the pressure on for players, and, you're struggling to make money out of it, and you've got the financial pressure, which is a little bit different, that's a lot more complex, and we do get a lot of players coming where you have to work on that one. If you've got bills to pay and this is your job and you're struggling, but if you're just an amateur player and you're doing it on the side, or you're sort of a player who, you're financially secure, then really what difference does it make? Because it's only going to hamper performance. If you put that added pressure on and you go in, then it's only going to make things a million times worse. You're only going to get that result that you're putting all that anxiety into, aren't you? So it's a difficult one. But I mean, even going back to the sort of the first thing I mentioned to you about this topic is, one thing that you'll hear players talk about is they go, especially at professional players, they'll go, well, the first thing out the mouth, like, I practice all the time. I'm in the club. I'm practicing 6-7 hours a day, and you're like, but what are you doing? Talk me through your day. And you right, well, I get into the club at 9. Right, okay. So what do you? And then you're straight on the table, mate. Yeah. No, I'll hang me coat up. I'll talk to the people in the club. I'll cook the kettle on. I'll maybe make myself a bacon sandwich, right? So what time's this? Then I'll get me cue. Then I'll go upstairs and I'll maybe do an hour and a half, and then I'll go on my phone a little bit, looking on social media, and then I'll get a little bit hungry. I'll go downstairs and put a Rustler's burger in the microwave, and then, I'll sit down for a little bit and I'll go on my news on my phone, and then I'll do that, and I'll go back upstairs, maybe do another hour and a half, and you're like, so you're saying you're doing 7 hours practice. You might be in the club that length of time, but what's actually the really productive quality practice time that you're doing? And I think that few players look at that. And I think, if you're talking about the CEO businessman you were talking to, it's something where a business person, you'll hear people go, he's really successful. And what did he make that year? Oh, he's made £1 million in sales. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. What was his outgoings? Well, it was £1,001. Also, he's actually £1 in the red then.
Yeah.
It's that net, that gross and net, isn't it? And I think it's the same with practice, anything else. What's like your profit? That's what businesses look at. What's your profit? Because come the end of the year, if you're bringing in all of this money, fantastic. But if you've got more going out, that's not great. And I think if you look at Q Sports players, don't look at how long you're in the club. Look at how long you're actually putting into quality practice.
Yeah. And
I think, that's the difference, because you'll get, and I think a lot of the top players might have realised this, because you'll hear Jude and I'm not so sure about Mark Williams, but other players where they'll actually go in and they'll do maybe only an hour, 2 hours a day, but it'll be laser focused, very, very good practice. And other players might look and go, well, they're doing less than me. Well, they're not really, because they're actually very focused on what they want to do. And I think if you're a Q Sport player, for me, and you're starting this year, is sitting down and looking at what's actually the problems, where can you improve, how do you improve that? So it's no good having a problem and then not doing any practice that's specific to improving that, and then monitoring that and recording that and tracking that. So again, looking at the data, what drills you're doing, tracking scores, tracking performance, and then evaluating and thinking, is this actually working? Am I actually improving? And I think if you have that process in place, then you become a lot better player come the end of it.
Definitely. It's something like, I do this exercise in some of the academies. So like if I go to one of the UK's, so obviously the top 3-4 academies, obviously I spend quite a bit of time in all of them, and doing one-to-one, and it's a process I always do with whatever player I'm with, right? We just sit to one side and we spend about 15 minutes or so, because there's another 20, 30, 40 tables in some of these academies watching the players. And in the room, there could easily be, at times, maybe be 10 other players in WST. And I'm like, watch it practice. Let's take table 10 there. Let's time how long he's on, and you'd be timing how long they're on the table before they pick up the phone again. But it's like literally like 3-4 minutes at a time. And then there might be 3 or 4 minutes practice, and then might be on the phone for like, look, that guy's been on the phone for 10 minutes now. And he's not WST. And it's like you think everybody's like nailing this, but they're so not. They're so not engaged like with this, and I'm forever players like drilling into them that's how you've not to be, because look at the opportunity to shine compared to everybody else, and especially like in the pool world generally, that the standard's even less. So it's like you've got this enormous opportunity to shine, and we've got a massive event coming up in Malta, haven't we? For some of the players off doing that, and I just think it's Q Sport Hub. If people have some discipline and apply what's been learned there, that there's an enormous opportunity to shine, to get a leg up on everybody else, and it gives you confidence, because it's like after it's been pointed out, like say I've spent a day with a player, and they call me next week, the following week, and it's like, I've gotten so much out of the last week because something I didn't notice before was that nobody else is engaged, and I hadn't noticed that before. And I see it when they have a break, because I like to have a break, and that's absolutely fine. But like, and they'll understand that it's like, God, look at everybody else, like they're just meandering along here. Nobody else is like properly engaged or talking to other. They're playing at tables beside each other. I can't think of something worse. There might be 30, 40 tables in this club, and half of them are free, and they're deciding to play at tables beside each other so they can chat whilst they practice, whilst they're in the middle of a routine. What's all that about? I'm absolutely horrified. I can remember, I'll not name the tournament, but I remember going to my first pool tournament, and I was honestly, James, I was ready to puke. I was so disgusted because not only was obviously there's, God, you go into a room and there's 40 tables going at once, right? And it's like the players they were in matches, and it might be in their pal in the next table, and mid-match, they're chatting to each other. This just blew me away. I just couldn't take this in. Honestly, I thought I'm going to have to go outside and puke here because I can't cope with this. I just can't cope with this. Coming from the world I'm used to, it's like, oh my God. But you're so right. Like in terms of like stuff getting monitored, like in the race car world, everything's written down. We've got a spreadsheet for everything, and whatever activity or function or process that's getting done with 30 staff that are running an event, I know exactly, because I've got numbers to prove it, that staff member is performing his duties better than the last event, because of the training that I've put in place. So he's maybe done his job to X, Y, and Z, and we've given him a number on that. So it's factual numbers on his performance in that role. And then after the event, I've acted on that number because that number needs to come up. Put some training in process for the member of staff, and then his number has gone up at the next event, and then move on to training another member of staff to help him during the course of and it might be from day to day or from event to event, but that's what we're used to doing, and it's like you've said, and I think like you're well, between us, I think we're coming up with something, aren't we, to help players, maybe like a form or a journal.
Yeah, I think it was an idea again going back actually enough to sort of having that time off. I look forward to that now for me because it's rare I do sort of switch off a little bit. But when I do, I tend to get some ideas. And I had that one where I just thought it'd actually be quite useful to create something like a journal where players can, really then look at the practice, look at the focus, record the drills, and have something that can take with them to actually monitor. Because I think sometimes it holds that accountable. It's like every year, like I've done this year, I'll always have a paper diary for me, writing things goes in better. And I'll always get the diary and I'll go through and put, key dates in, and anything really important. And every day I'll open that up and it sort of becomes that habit. But then I know where sort of everything's at and setting it out. And I think if you have that with you, it holds you accountable, doesn't it? It's yes, you can put in your phone, yes, you can do whatever else. But I think if you have something there that you can take with us, then you can sort of monitor that and look at it, take it into a hotel room, write something down after games. How did you feel? And I think if you would have follow that, yes, it's not going to be for everybody, but I think it would really help with what we're talking about. Sort of today in terms of practice and, putting that together, but also from a mindset perspective as well to evaluate and look at how you're feeling and looking at the nutritional elements and looking at the hydration, how it can really bring everything together and put into one sort of journal and think, right, players can take that and that can then guide them and lead them to sort of where they need to be. Because we know the answers, but I think sometimes the players actually don't know what they're looking for themselves. They don't know what, and that's going back, isn't it? You know, how many times have we spoke about in here or personal where people come and say the mindset's letting them down, but then when you actually go back to their practice, they're doing nothing for the mindset. That's not incorporated into the practice, and it's like, well, you know, how do you expect to improve your mindset without practicing on it and working on it and incorporating that into your practice and then monitoring whether that's actually working? And then inevitably they'll come back and say, well, it hasn't worked. Have you done anything with it? Nah. Right, champion. That'll do the trick.
No, it's the same happening in Formula One teams and Premiership football and stuff as well. You know, they've got this constant feedback loop, and they're looking at everything they're doing, and looking at incremental gains, or marginal gains, or incremental gains on what they can be doing better. You know, and part of that process of what they can do better is practice. You know, and how they're looking at that. I mean, I know there's players that are very good at it, and they'll do it for a few weeks and then they'll stop doing it. I know, like, players that are really. There's a player in mind in WST that he's very, very good at this. Once it showed him and keeping a practice journal, and he must have, like, we use like an A4 book, like a day-to-day diary. So 1 page is 1 day, and you get hardback versions at WH Smith. And like, obviously they're year big, 365 pages in it, obviously, and we use them as a practice journal, and not so much filling it each day. It's more like, you know, you're just using it as a book, really. And he's looking at his numbers he's doing in drills, and he can look at what he did 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, and he knows factually he's a better player now than he was 18 months ago. And how does he know that? Because the numbers tell him he's factually a better player than he was before. And what does that do to your confidence? Given it an X drill, your high score used to be 47 and now it's 69. You know, whatever that is, you know. So it's like, this is why, you know, it's so key. And from the golfing world, players are just like, you just won't find an elite tour golfer that doesn't keep practice journals. It just doesn't exist. Of course they do that, and exactly the same with an Olympic athlete. You know, everything's written down. Everything's written down, and it's like trying to understand. Right, I performed Tuesday last week in the swimming pool, whatever. I performed really, really well. I broke 2 personal records in practice that day. And they're like, well, how? What was the reason why? They're able to show their coaches, and it's like, well, I actually changed my diet slightly. The day before, I had this, and this, and I never had that before. And I went out the next day and broke 2 records. And it's like, wow, great. Okay, well, let's look into that. Let's understand why that really helped you. You know, and everything's written down. So, like, in terms of, like, can you imagine putting things in process like a Formula One team, like a Premiership footballer, like a Olympic athlete? Imagine doing things to that standard in Q sports and the advantage that would give you. Oh my God, you're going to have to get a bigger house, put all the trophies in.
Yeah. No, it's true, because this is something that we've mentioned before, and it's a big part of why we start a Q Sports Hub, is because there's a massive gulf in that elite performance in terms of the mindset. So, you know, at the top end, there's a lot of money, and, you know, the sport's moved on massively, and players are, you know, doing really well financially. But there's that lag in terms of, and other sports, don't get me wrong, other sports, golf sort of more certainly moved ahead in recent years, and they've taken a lot more serious, and you don't get sort of the you know, getting away with things in the past. Same with cricket. You know, cricket was notorious, wasn't it? You would see them all going out like it was a stag do every night after test matches when they were in Australia or whatever. And, you know, now it's, again, very serious diet, looking after themselves, and all of that's been knocked on the head. But you won't see any really other elite level sports doing as little as what Q Sport players do. You know, if you look at what a footballer would do, or a tennis player would do, or a golfer, or like you said, even going into motorsports, Olympic athletes, everything's mapped out. Olympic athletes, if they're looking now, athletes now for Olympics are training now for the Olympics in 4 years' time.
Of course they are.
They're mapped out, and they'll have all the events mapped out. They'll have training plans. They'll work backwards and think, right, you've got this event, the Grand Prix or the Europeans or whatever, and everything's then tailored in terms of their training to make sure that they're at the peak at that. You know, it's not just guesswork and turn up and thinking, right, I've just put in practice. I've been in the swimming pool every day. I've just done a few lens, jumped off the diving board a couple of times.
Crossed.
You know, I've been in there 6 hours a day, but I've been just messing about and not really doing it. But 4 years' time, I'll smash that Olympics, and it doesn't work. Every other sport looks at that. You know, if you look at not even just the Premier League football, you're going down to sort of League One, League Two. They will go in for pre-season, but before they leave the previous season, they'll be taking all of the body fat percentages. They'll be looking at the weight. They'll be given diet plans. They'll be given things to keep themselves fit. When they come back in, all of that will be retaken, and they'll be then fined and whatever else if they're overweight or the fitness levels have dropped because they knew where they were, so they're held accountable. And then they'll go into pre-season. They'll be monitored again to see if that's had an impact. They've got all the GPS trackers, so they know how hard they're working, the intensities, the distances they cover. They've got the nutritionists. Yeah. They'll look at all of recovery. Then they'll go into games. They'll have someone who'll clip the games down. They'll look at, you know, what did you do well, not so well. They'll look at positioning, passing, crossing, shooting, finishing, all of these, and they'll sit and watch it back. Then they'll watch the opposition. Then they'll be given tactical stuff of how the opposition plays and their job, and then they'll evaluate the games. You know, it's a continuous sort of loop of how they then perform and get better. But they know where they're at every aspect, and they're held accountable. But we don't get that in Q Sport. And it's like you've just said, if you start implementing 5% of these things, which is easy enough to do, then you're going to absolutely fly. If you look at your diet, nutrition, when you implement these things, if you look at your practice and get that laser focused, what do I need to work on? What do I need to improve? Getting the drills, recording the drills, monitoring, how do I get better? Looking at games, what did I do well? What did I not do so well? And then going round in that loop and knowing that where you are at all times, you're going to absolutely fly.
You're a bit, but they're just not doing it. They're just not, which is, you know, it's good. I
suppose one of my questions to you, mate, I'm going to put you on the spot. Why do you think a lot of pool players and snooker players don't?
Well, initially, the obvious answer is knowledge. They don't know how to, right? But you know what's more bemusing, and again, without naming names, is like generally, even when they're shown how to, they don't. And it's that becomes quite disappointing because, you know, there's so much more they could do, and they're just not. And really, at the end of the day, it's like very much a question of like, well, how much do you want it? You know? And it's quite bemusing. Years and years ago, I went into, I got asked to help for a few months at English national weeks. Is that the 4th division in England? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4th division in England.
Like the conference like levels.
Conference, okay.
Yeah.
So I went into this team to help them for a few months. And I thought, oh my God, I mean, this is going to be, excuse me, pretty backwards. You know, I was really expecting, you know, things to be pretty backwards in terms of how things are done. You know, and obviously here's me, I'm used to, you know, managing world championship winning teams and stuff, you know, at a much, much higher level. And I was actually stunned at the level, how good they were, how good things were, how good they had processes in place, you know, and it's like even like the GPS trackers and stuff at that level, you know, they're running that. And it's like, I remember, you know, like sitting in, you know, before games and and to the manager, talking to them and showing them the stats and the numbers. And it's like, right, whenever we have, as a team, achieved X kilometres, so it was quite a high number, I can't remember what number it was, but during the course of the game, the whole team as a whole had ran X kilometres, right? And so that was their top number. And basically, they sussed out that whenever they were close to this number, they never lost. They never lost a game. And whenever we've lost a game, we've done before that. So I'm like, God, like, it's pretty simple then, isn't it? You know, like it's really, and seeing that click in the players and then them acting on that and that performance deficit, you know, was gone, because, you know, they're just like, right, we just need to give everything here because we don't get away with anything. Like, you know, I can't just meander about today because you can see it, you can see the numbers, even individually. And they've also got that competition feedback loop because, you know, they would, I think it was like one of the, to be honest, I brought in some mindset stuff, of course, you know, I was able to help them, but from performance analysis, there was not a massive amount like that for me to bring. Like the one thing I thought was, and they did put this into place. They had a leadership board, so like the individual numbers that the players had done in terms of explosive acceleration. So we had a league table on that. Distance overall during the course of the match, had another league table on that, and that got posted up in the dressing room every week. And so you could see where you were and that, and having that pride with the players consistently being top 3 or 4 every week, you know, and every one of the I think there was like 3 scoreboards that we had with this, you know, that I thought, you know, that was quite good, you know, and the players enjoyed that. And obviously players that are consistently at the bottom of that, you know, were getting ribbed and, you know, are getting a lot of stick, you know, in the dressing room, quite rightly so. You know, quite rightly so, you know, because there's just no room for this because it gave some extra kind of accountability. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like, and it's something, you know, you and I have kind of discussed as well, you know, obviously privately, we kind of go into that kind of too deeply here, but it's like finding pros that are like-minded like me and James in terms of we're absolutely all in. Just name a thing and I'll get it done. And I'm like, right,
yeah,
I think yoga is going to really help you. Like, yoga? God, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, well, think about it, right? Think of the stress positions you're on the snooker table, got one leg up. If you're like incredibly flexible, and plus from a fitness and mindfulness point of view as well, it's like really, really powerful. If you're of that ilk, that you'll do everything it takes to get that, and this is going to give you a few percentage gain, right? Because you're going to be more comfortable during those shots. Because your body's not straining to be in that position, right? So hence why, yeah, yoga's going to help you. I'm like, yeah, I'll just get it done. And they're in a tiny percentage. Most players, and it's exactly the same in our one-to-one session. They ask our players, like, what are you willing to do to get to your goals, to be the best for you as an amateur to turn pro, for example, or anything. I'll do absolutely anything. And I tell you, 99% of the time, that's not true.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
true.
They're just kidding themselves. But
yeah,
that's what separates the top from the bottom across any sport is your attitude and application towards the sport and towards training. I mean, for argument's sake, you look at, you know, I'm a big Manchester United fan as well as Sunderland, and it's been doing my head in for a long time, and, you know, people saying that United are rubbish and all these things, and I'll argue blind. And I don't know if you've seen, but you see them at the weekend, turn up Liverpool, Anfield. They've been abysmal for games, attitude, application. They turn up, they're brilliant. They get a 2-2 draw, could have maybe won it at the end. What that shows to me, unequivocally, 100%, is it's an attitude problem. Because when they want to in the big game, they can turn up and they can do that. But the problem is they don't want to. The attitudes aren't good enough. It's not ability, it's attitudes. And in any sport, you have to do the things that you don't want to do, or the people don't want to do, like running and the hard work and all these other aspects.
Yeah.
You might not want to do them, but the top athletes and top players and top sportsmen and women do that. And they'll do it, and they mightn't want to do it. They might hate doing it, but they will do it with 100%, and they'll do it every single time. And that's the difference, because ability will only take you so far. And the World Snooker Tour and the Pool Tours and all these are full of players, and the amount of stories that you hear and such is better than these and all of that, but they're nowhere near you. And they're nowhere near you because they don't apply themselves. And talking about talent and how good someone is only takes you so far. And you can talk about that, you're blue in the face.
Absolutely.
When you're in the pub, when you're old, and tell people how good I could have been, but it's too late then, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You'd rather tell people what you've achieved and know that you've given everything and improved. And I think that's something that you mentioned there, like the top players that we've worked with, they will do anything to get that edge.
They will, and they're in the minority, and there's times where I've had players like, and it's good when they're able to put ego to one side and they're able to take honest appraisal of themselves. But it's like, I made them watch a documentary about, say, Sir Chris Hoy that we've shared on the private page about, how he applies himself as a 5-time Olympic champion, and they watch that, and my phone will ring afterwards. It's like, well, you just watched the Hoy thing, and how'd you get on with that? And he's like, I'm not working hard enough. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Because that's what real hard work looks like, is what he puts himself through. And it's just, it's utterly profound. But it's something, unfortunately, like we see a lot of. But I just think, I find it massively exciting though, because like for players that are investing themselves, i.e. an investment is you spending money on yourself and doing Q Sport Hub. I mean, I find that's good intention. You've done a good act there. You've tried to improve yourself and recognise that you need to do that. And that's like really, really good. You're maybe not aware of this, Mr. Here. I don't know if you've noticed this, right? But did you know we have a gentleman on Q Sport Hub called Zach Shepherd? And Zach did an amazing thing. Zach has just turned pro on Ultimate Pool, and he did his first event there, Championship League in Ultimate Pool, and he won.
Fantastic.
What from amateur is your first week? Horrible group too. He was in horrible group, and just won. So I mean, like, massively congrats to him. That's absolutely awesome, and we love to see this.
Absolutely, yeah.
We love to see this, but off the back of it, and it's certainly something we've gone about in the hub as well. It's like, I do love a what do you call it? Is that a saying or a slogan? I don't know what the right word is. You're clever with that stuff. But when your shoulds become your musts, then you'll be successful. And then the upper echelons of F1 drivers, Olympic athletes, Premiership footballers, there's nothing more to give. There is no shoulds. Oh, I should be doing this. Shoulds didn't exist. They're completely non-existent. They give everything all of the time. And you and I are both really good at this, because myself and James, between the two of us, we park our egos, and it's constantly a safe space between me and James in terms of things we can get done better. And if I feel like James can be doing stuff better, then I tell him. And he does exactly the same. Exactly. And you do the same with myself. It's like, come on, where's that content you promised me? Come on, you need to get this done. Because, like, again, it's like, we're I should be doing that. Sorry, I should have done that. No, the shouldn't exist. They should just get stuff done. because if you want to be successful in anything, business, coaching, sport, the process is exactly the same. There is no trying harder. You just give everything all the time.
Yeah.
As much as you possibly can. So it's like we're both continually working a lot, and for me it's like I kind of view it on a personal basis. I kind of view it as like if I were to sit down and watch a movie or a show, which I greatly enjoy doing, I need to feel like I've earned that in the day. So it's like I have to have achieved this, and this, and I often look at this one. I've got one here. It's an instruction manual for a phone charger, and I used it to scribble down some notes. So this, I know it looks like there was a semi-drunk spider walking across the paper there, but I made myself a wee list this morning. The stuff I've got to get done today. I've got to do this, and this, and so like I've been out there, getting that done. I think I've still got one more to do, but that's all right. And this is one of them. But it's like I do that all the time, and I've got to earn that time off. And if I feel it gets to 7, 8 o'clock, and I haven't earned that, then I'll push on for another hour, doing whatever it is, social media, recording some more content, whatever it is, I'm meant to be doing. But it's like just earn that time off. It's the same for you sportsmen. It's like you should be earning that time. And I just see like this week alone, I did a 1-to-1 with a 4-time world champion in Q Sports, and I. Like the players very honest. It's they're just very much of I can see now I've got a lot more to do. I need to be doing much more, but it's not. Again, partly through lack of knowledge, because they've been trying to do this themselves for a long time. And again, it's just something you never see. Like a tennis player with a team of people around them. Elite footballers, even though they might play for Liverpool, they've got their own staff out with that. And it's not a well-known fact but they'll have at least 3, 4, 5 members of staff that they personally employ to help them with their training, dietitians, etc., etc., etc. Out with that, and that is the norm in elite sport. Obviously, money's not endless, and hence why Q Sport we try to do a number of different hats and help players in so many different ways as much as we can. Hence why mine and James's skill sets are enormously different. He's with all his professional management background and nutritionist and stuff as well. And then mine, on the mindset and management in a different way too. So we've got different skill sets that we're coming together to help share with us. So I think we're about, God, that's over an hour already, James.
Oh, I couldn't shut you up.
Standard.
I was ready to finish 50 minutes ago, but you...
Oh, no. But then our shoulds will become a must. Yeah.
Exactly.
But no,
exactly. I think that's hopefully people find that helpful, especially starting the new year and really looking at that. I think there's some really good bits we've come up with there in terms of find that plan, becoming laser focused, looking at what your problem is, how you're going to address it, what drills you're going to do, and even that last part there, finding the team. That's why people come to us and is having sometimes just that somebody to bounce those ideas off and to get that reassurance that what you're doing is right. Because sometimes you don't know that, and I think it's an individual sport, pool, snooker, and you think you're doing right, and sometimes you're not, or sometimes you're doing right, but that you think that you're not, and yourself doubting. Having somebody who's been there, done it, and having people who you can just bounce those ideas off can be so helpful, and that's also what we're here for as well, and what the hub's there for. But yeah, I think people, if you're struggling with that sort of thing, they'll have found this video quite useful. But thanks again, and thanks to you as well, mate, for 1 hour and 4 minutes of your beautiful time on planet Earth, dedicating it to this video.
Nobody might see this because mind I'm
Well, I
in
don't think
charge of
anybody will
recording
see it.
this. This might
It's
never
just
come
me and
to
you
light.
just keep watching it over and over again.
Because I mean it is. See when it's recording. Is it meant to say recording in the top screen? Because it doesn't.
It says live on mine, yeah. So, I hope so. Otherwise, we're just wasting all that time.
Amazing.
But yeah, if you just, yeah, mate, just when you click on, you'll have to just stop it.
Amazing. Right. See you in a bit. Take care.
See you in a bit, mate.